I just did.
Um, how uh, how is the rest of the world in such dismay? If I feel like
Yeah,
this, if I love life right now, if I'm chilling and loving my imagination, which every child should be given, if given the right environment, that's what they like. That's what they bear is this beautiful like experience of the imagination and this wonder and innocence uh and I literally told myself like, don't you forget this feeling, don't you dare forget it. And I literally said this to myself like it was a big deal, and here I have almost forgotten it already, and I have to remind myself daily. And I wonder if it does anyone else do that. Do we remind ourselves to, because is that not what we're like, it really bothers me when I see us producing more weapons of mass destruction, etc., or just people just talking whatever in general. Because it's like we used to be children running around barefoot, picking up sticks and playing in the dirt, throwing mud. And now we're
right.
up here in our big boy pants with medals on our chest and titles to our name and power given to us by the people, apparently. And we get this like greater than now sense of, the freedom that we've been called to. And we use it for an opportunity of the flesh rather than, to quote the Bible, rather than an opportunity to serve each other through love, which is what is possible through the freedom that we have. But rather, we have sinful men with greed and lust who, don't conquer themselves, but rather give themselves to the world. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but um, see why I believe that the older we get, the younger the younger our mental and emotional state becomes is if you if you interact with someone who's like after retirement, right? Like said 70s, 80s, 90s, like past 70s,
Yeah.
they tend to become stubborn just like we are when we're children. You know, if I want something, I want it. I don't care if my parents have money. I don't care if we have the resources. I don't care if that thing even exists. You know, if I want it, I want it. Because that's how my grandma is right now. She's like 80 some years old.
Yo, that
And
go on.
yeah, and basically that's how she is. I mean, she's not here, right? She's not in the US, she's in Pakistan. And she basically just whines and becomes a child when talking to my dad, that I don't care how you do it, I want to come see you. I mean, of course, immigration and all that stuff is a different story, that she doesn't understand that you need to apply for a visa to come here, right?
Yeah.
So she becomes that way, that no, if I want to see you, I want to see you, and that's the end of it. And that's the difficult part, dealing with it, because we're thinking that, oh hey, this person is older than us, right? And out of our own respect, we don't confront them. But in actuality, they need to they need to be treated like a child. You know, you need to reason with them, go down to their level, and make them understand that, okay, this is how the process works, and this is how it is. So I cannot just book a ticket for you and have you here the next day. So I think that's another big thing that we forget, that at the end of the day, it's not about how wise a person is or how much experience they have, how long they've lived, etc. It's about their own ability deal with the stuff that is being put towards them.
Yeah, exactly that. It's the imprint left on the human being of the life they lived. And Yusha, this is exactly what we've talked about. I'm gonna go dimensional here. We're talking, this is the same example we always give. All right, I'm gonna was that a good spot to go in? Was that
Yeah, go for it, man.
okay? Just like you're talking about there, they've regressed to the same point almost, it seems, but rather the opposite side of it almost. But it's
Mhm.
the same side, different side of the same coin almost. And that's exactly, imagine again, okay, we talk about a higher dimensional thing passing through a lower dimensional thing, right? Okay. And we're talking about the fourth dimensional sphere passing through the three-dimensional world, okay, or whatever. And again, at the beginning, I'm sorry, we can go down one. Three-dimensional sphere, two-dimensional. It begins as a point, okay, and then
Mm.
it grows to the maximum of the point, but then it regresses to that smaller line and then a point again as it passes past the midpoint to the other side and then pop through. And then the fourth dimensional passing through the three-dimensional, okay, starts as a small balloon, okay, grows into the maximum balloon, but then confines itself again and slowly shrinks, okay. And it's the opposite. It's the past the point of midway, and it's the other side of the half. You know what I'm saying? It's older,
Yeah.
but it's childlike again in the sense that it's a smaller portion because it's near the end of its passing through. Okay, and again, because we're complex metaphysical beings, the soul passing through the world that we live in, physical and time bearing, it is born a child entering the realm of the soul, okay, and it inhabits the body, and it is molded, and you either retain and hone, and it's as if you're hammering a hammer, or a sword, finely with a blacksmith, and he's but if you let the iron sit still and not strike while the iron's hot, it's going to be a dull hammer at the end of its the man working the iron. You know what I'm saying? So during your
Mm.
time on Earth, working the iron as you're the fourth dimensional passing through and you're inhabiting your body. Okay, but because we're metaphysical, that growing of the small to the big is also in a metaphysical sense. So we grow, morally, ethically, don't we? Maturely. That's what it is. There's a waxing and a waning to it. Exactly
Right.
that. There's a full moon to ourselves, and then a half moon, and then a lower moon on each side, just like the moon itself. That's the metaphysical part of us.
True.
And it's we have to use, because we're bound by the time, okay, we have to live and die. We have to be born and die. That sphere passing through our time, because it's a living thing, it would have to be born and it has to die as it's passing through. But then on the other side, it still is there. But the life it's lived has an impact on its like being. You know what I'm saying? Because we're just so absolute freedom. So plugging in the right execution of that, the formula is the way of molding it to the right being. It's solving of it, molding the sword into the sharpness that it can be. That's what humans have the capability of doing, freedom that we have and that we're called to do. What is the ultimate being of that? And does God write the instructions down? Does he give you an example and say, look, I love you. Here's what I give you. And because we live in a world of life and death and good and evil, and man is to sin, God, okay, the truth, the equation doesn't come and condemn man. No, that's not the solution to the equation. Okay, the solution to the equation is conquering the death by living as man did, as an example, and dying as men do.
But what is the way a man lives
So
so
this,
that they're prepared to die, you know?
so how does a tree grow? Right, my tree in my front yard lost the leaves, top half of its leaves somehow. I don't know if it's sick or what, but it's still growing new growth now. I've seen it.
Right.
Ever since we took an acorn from that front tree, my parents took an acorn from that front tree and planted it in our backyard, and now we have a tree in our backyard that's nearly as old as it's older than me. It's my brother's age.
Mhm.
Watched it grow, and it grew towards the light, and it soaked up the water as according to its nature. Okay, it didn't have to, look to the tree next to it to learn how to grow towards the sun. It grows towards the sun. But man is cursed and, born with the responsibility of growing towards, it chooses where it grows. And it looks to other humans to learn how to grow. The son does what the father does. I catch myself doing my father's mannerisms all the time. What
Mm.
is set forth before you, you will do. And when you see it, and that is what differs humans from other beings, is that humans can look to the other of them and shine their own light on them and make the other man grow. Just as a tree grows towards the light of the sun, humans have the sun within them and they get to shine it if they so choose to. And that's spirit. Just as you would imagine God knocking on your door or a random encounter of God, the characteristics, love, compassion, you know, he, you know, he would wash your feet because he loves you.
Mhm.
It's, you don't understand why I'm doing this now, but you will later.
True.
And damn, I lost my point there, but that was it. Oh, yes. And so
Yeah.
men can either choose to, when they've been revealed to the light, shine it. A candle isn't put in a dark room. It's put on a sill in a hill, where it shines and gives light. Just as, you know, the answer to the being human equation, okay, and living, okay, isn't out there on Mars and conquering Mars, okay? It's not out there. The kingdom of God is within you. And they
True.
can bring it to be by looking at that light and letting that light then reflect on themselves as a mirror would reflect light that is shown upon it. Become mirrors and reflect the light that God has given us so as to live. Just as trees grow towards the light, it's the life of living as a human. That's what to grow towards. So let it reflect to others as a mirror would reflect it shining on it. Recognize it. Don't turn away and be in a cave as they were in the allegory of the cave, refused to believe that the sun shone and that all that was not just the shadows, but rather light shone outside. But men's hearts are hardened over time and they cast it in stone. But it takes the word of God and an encounterance with the totality of that, to melt the heart of man, to get him a sharp sword once again. Instead of being cast into the cold water, he's reignited in the flames, burned. And that's what certain passings of time and experiences of living as a human can do to a man. You have a conversation with yourself, and then a certain song comes on, and it's like God's speaking to you. That breaks a man's heart. Things like that, where you allow yourself to give things meaning because that's what we do. So,
See, but unlike the tree, the man has the freedom, I would say, and the capability to think for itself, you know.
mhm,
If you if you leave
exactly.
a tree if you leave a tree to grow, right, it's gonna grow and eventually it's gonna look like any other tree of its own species until and unless you look closer, you find that, oh, these set of branches grew in a separate way than the other ones, so on and so forth. But for a human, if you if a human grows by itself, right? For
Mhm,
example, you know, in the wilderness, say for some reason the child just grew up in wilderness without any human connection, it's gonna grow and obtain the reflection of its surroundings. Like, you know how you have Tarzan, right? He grew up around gorillas, and that's who he reflects himself to. That's who he counts himself as. So similarly, uh, further down the story of Tarzan, he when he meets the humans, he's like, "Oh, you know what? Maybe I'm not a gorilla. I'm something else." And
mhm,
then he goes to London to find out about who he is as a creature, as a living, breathing being made by God Himself. And that revelation comes to us only when we are by ourselves and we have to be in a time where we feel completely alone. You know, a lot of the reflection that if you look back at the moments where you truly felt like, oh my God, this is a revelation. I didn't know this about myself, but now I do. Almost all of those times, you'll find yourself that it was either at my lowest point in life or it was when I was completely isolated. And when you have humans around you have different flavors to pick from that, okay, maybe I don't want to be like my dad. Maybe I want to be more like my mom or, you know, older sibling or anything of sort, whoever is the closest to you, the person that you can relate to the most. So, in that manner of speaking, I think when we say that, you know, man is made in the image of God, it's not only our physical appearance, because if you only look at the physical appearance, how many different types of, you know, skin tones, hair types, eye color, facial
mhm,
features, body, physique, all of that. So in a matter of physical speaking, um, yeah, we could be. But in my opinion, it's more closely related to our ability to make a decision free of any strings attached to it. Like if I want to get a new pair of headphones, I'm gonna get it. I'm not gonna say that, oh, my dad got a new pair of headphones, that's why I'm getting a new pair of headphones. You kind of see where I'm going with this?
Mm. Okay.
Because a tree doesn't have that option, you know. It you
Yeah.
give it you give it sunlight, you give it water, and you give it nutrients, and it's going to grow regardless. Yeah, it might be a little stunted because it wasn't maybe given proper sunlight or some form of nutrition that wasn't being delivered properly, but eventually it will become a tree of the same species. It cannot say that, oh, today I feel like an oak tree, or tomorrow I'll become a pine tree. But humans, we can do that. In like how we can change and adapt to what we find interesting about different cultures, different societies, different people, and how people do things differently than us. I think that is the main um, point of us being humans, that regardless of our differences, we always find a connection that brings us closer, whether it's our history, whether it's something that we're going through currently, something, you name it, and we can find a commonality between the two experiences shared by the two different people.
I love the comparison of us to a mirror
Hmm.
because it's so
I
accurate.
mean, is that not what we are?
It's exactly what we are. Imagine you were making all things, okay, and you were making things of certain nature, and you thought a thing of the best nature would be something that could be its own nature, which is to reflect, what is set upon it almost. Um, because then that's freedom, isn't it? You choose what, and then you give it the ability to reflect what it. So humans are, we have a responsibility, and I think we dull it down by saying guaranteeing that there's other life out there, and that other life, oh, blah blah blah, but what that would mean. And I still say that, if there is that life out there, it's looking at us like knowing exactly how special we are, like that we have this freedom about us that is drenched in responsibility because we are of a higher, because the soul exists. So hey, like that's what it would be. So it's obvious that humans are metaphysical. So it's like you cannot deny that we don't participate in some of the higher dimensions. Like you literally can't, because scientists already agree that there's like up to 11 dimensions. Like,
Hmm.
so it's like you have to accept that. Then when you accept that, that unlocks some parts of your life, because then you understand why you're angry and anxious sometimes, and how some things reflect upon you, and then your actions can, mm, be born from that. Actions are born from thoughts. So what you expose yourself to, and then what is absorbed, and then what you reflect on others makes an imprint on them. When you understand that we're not just here in this, up, right, left, down, you know type of world, that there's, because humans are certain,
Equally.
we I think it's a shame that we're so far from it, or we're seeming like we're almost embracing being, like, what's the harm in, like, slowing down, you know what I'm saying? And like, do we
Mm.
really care, you know what I'm saying? Like, That's like an equivalent. Like it's
See, unlike anything else, a human's growth is not linear, right? We grow in so many different directions, whether it's our understanding of things, finding out who we are. You know how usually during the teenage to early 20s, that's called the most rebellious phase of a person's life, because that is the point where we are at a physical maturity where we can do certain things, but not a mental or an emotional maturity where we can understand
yeah.
if what
Because
that action has repercussions to us.
yeah, that's so right. It's like that makes so much sense. It's like, and that's what it just perplexes me then, man, why I see so much crap like of like just on the main sources of conversation in the modern world. Like in how distracted it's made us all. And we've gotten so distracted that we've forgotten what we were, literally. Like so like
See, I think it's because it's because we focus so much what's gonna be tomorrow that we forget what we are today. Like,
yeah.
today I'm blessed to be breathing. I'm blessed to have all my body functions working. I'm blessed to be able to have a conversation with you right now, discuss some things that most other people don't even imagine about. But even me, I fall subject to what if tomorrows. That's what I like to call them. And it's usually the thought process that what if I accept this job, or what if I'm not accepted for this interview? So all these what ifs in one corner, and all the tomorrows in one corner. I think that is the main, um, I guess, object that restricts our growth as a person. Because why does a child grow so much and so fast? Because it doesn't have any other tensions, problems, anything else to care about, right? All it cares about is being able to develop. If you see a child who can barely walk, they're already trying to run, because they don't have a worry that, oh, I'm going to fall, I'm going to scrape my knee, I'm going to bust my nose, stuff like that. But now, when we think about, say, going for mountain climbing, right, the first thought that comes to us is, oh, what if I slip and fall? What if I break a bone? What if? And that basically just stops us from doing that act in its entirety.
Hmm. You're right, yeah. And so that's what it is. It's us thinking or knowing that we can do something and then not doing it. That's sometimes that's can that be called good, because well, there's a better way to say it in the book, The Experience of Freedom, but you know, that's why you feel like almost giddy after, committing something that could be said evil, like murder or something, because it feels as if the opportunity or freedom was there and you've snatched it, you've grasped it and you took it. So that's why it's more beautifully said then again. But oh, this has been very oof. Where the fuck is Orlando?
I said he had to get some groceries or whatever.
It was a while ago. I was hoping he'd be here by now.
Call him.
Let me call him.
But on the matter of reflecting, do you believe that you know how some of our good and bad habits are derived directly from our parents?
Mhm.
And do you believe that we unknowingly inherit their fears or concerns as well? Say if a child is brought up in a lower middle class family where finance is a big concern for the parents, right? The child eventually unknowingly and unwillingly grows up in the same aspect that, oh, hey, I need to budget, I need to limit my wants, I need to, stop spending so much, and all those things. Do you think we indirectly, because no parent wants their concerns, worries, or problems to be passed down to their child, right? But we as intellectual thinking human beings, it's inevitable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is inevitable. Yeah, so that's part of the. So you have to overcome that to to really be call yourself yourself. You know, bear your own name, but at the same time bear that of your fathers.
Because if you look at um, what are they called? Monks that practically isolate themselves on the Himalayan mountains or whatever, they they learned how to leave all the worries behind. Like, how you can never face them no matter what you say. You
Hmm.
can't like really trigger them. I think that is a point where us humans as a society whole need to be focused towards that. How do I control myself and not my surroundings? Like if someone is saying something that upsets me, of course I cannot control the surroundings, right? I can't hold someone's tongue and prevent them from saying it, but how do I control myself from giving back a reaction? Now that is I think that is an ability that we've forgotten how to I guess cater to.
Yeah, we've that's especially right. Yeah, I totally agree, and that's sort of like wait, shit. Say it one more time. You said it's almost like exactly you want to treat people like they treat you, like you what you would want to be treated. That's exactly what it is. Like,
But see, that statement is the reason why we have such aggressive reactions, right? We assume that, oh, hey, if I curse out at someone, they're gonna get upset and we're gonna end up in a fight. And naturally and unknowingly, that becomes our standpoint that, hey, if someone curses at me, I'm gonna get upset because we have the same perspective of others. But if we change it and if we teach our kids, uh, if we grow our kids to know that, hey, if someone says it, it's okay because it's just words, right? It can't hurt you. But if someone wants to be physical or someone wants to get like physically harm you, then is the time you should have a more strong reaction.
yeah, it's self-control is this like animals don't have the self. They don't like do they show they show mercy, yes, but it's humans have this wide range of options, and so the mercy capability, the range of their being carries more weight. So the decision then carries more weight in and of itself,
Mm,
because it's a particular being. Um, so when we acknowledge to ourselves, that's why wicked men doing evil and knowing that they're doing evil are like to their own destruction. Uh, it's you know resisting freedom's doing when to spare a life rather than to take it. Like in all war, men have the option to walk away and shoot. And choose dishonorment over, killing, etc. But they choose war over that, and that's the weight of the responsibility of man. Apes they make mini war. They don't make weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah.
And men know what they're doing. We know the way we do, and what it cancels out the good. That's what makes us compared to.
True. But on the same matter of speaking, sure, they see apes make wars that are limited and restricted to right then and there, right? You don't see apes holding grudges or, coming back to the same fight over and over and over again.
Well,
They
actually,
fight and that's it.
I don't know that actually. I can say, but they just don't have the capability to drop like a nuke on. Like they're simply using their hands. Like they're very limited in the weight of their decisions. Right? Their world is very small.
Mm.
But man knows the world's big and has this almost grandiose feeling then when making a big decision in that big world. And then can they almost consider themselves God then? They send men off to war. Is it God waging war on man, through the like that's what kings did back in the day, you know what I'm saying? Like or crusades and shit. So it's like this rationalization of evil or like this potential for it. It's just putting the opportunity right in front of the opportunist. It's just not healthy. Putting the big red button right in front of the eager presser. Like it's why continue to perpetuate that if that's not your end goal? So it's then you recognize that, you know, there's a lot of lies in the world and that the leaders of men kind of bask in those lies. And they,
But some of us prefer living in that lie. Why? Because it's just easier. It's easier to accept that all mankind is bad, and
again,
that's
yeah,
that.
the responsibility, the weight of being human, the weight of the hammer to hammer the sword into a sharp sword. You're given the weight of a life, whether you choose to live in a certain way or not, or being a certain way, is either leaving the hammer down or picking it up and striking while it's hot. Because otherwise, you're going to find yourself cast and hardened and stoned and waiting for something to melt your heart that might never come. But that's whether or not you choose to pick it up again. It is what it is because it's always there. But we've hidden it sometimes. The world does a good job of hiding it. The world doesn't celebrate this. Otherwise, we'd be living in blissful, peace, like we would have a utopia, but we don't. So you have to recognize that the world shrouds the truth from you then. That it's naturally hate the truth because it obviously doesn't serve it right now. You see what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, just in the name of in the name of um in the name of God, how many times have we used that as a leverage? Whether you
Yeah.
look at the Roman Empire, the Crusades, the what's it called, Taliban, everything. I mean, just in the name of God, and that's only one thing. There's so much more that we political views. That's another thing. We just seek differences that further pull us apart, but then there come those moments where we couldn't be more united. Like, yes, the world was separated during, well, after the 9/11 events, but if you look at how many people come every year just to pay their respects to the people who fell to those attacks, it's phenomenal. You could just stand there and watch people interact with one another, regardless of age, religion, gender, politics, whatever you may want to include in it.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. There are ways to align the will of men either through yeah is up to the wielder of the word, I guess.
But then again, we fall prey to those people who claim that, hey, I know more than you, or I know better than you, that you should follow what I'm saying.
Mm.
Like, how many times we follow either our professors, teachers, peers, and other people in our life, that we become more of them and less of ourselves, to the point where we become a completely different person than what we were, say, before meeting them. Right? We try to mold ourselves to become something we're not, and oftentimes that is the moment where we reflect on ourselves and say, "Oh, this is what's happened, and this is not who I want to be." But then it becomes so much of a distance to cover that most people either fall into some sort of a mental illness, or stuff like where they feel like they belong to anyone or anything.
Hey, what's up, yo? Y'all still here? Hello?
Wait, is that your microphone?
What'd you say?
I think that's your microphone.
Can't hear anything.
There's a lot of feedback from your microphone.
Oh, really?
Mine?
No,
Mine?
it's Orlando.
Huh. Give me a sec.
It's like a lot of stuff.
What'd you say? Yeah, let me connect
There's a
my.
lot of stuff on your end.
Hold on, give me a sec.
Sure. So what else is there that we either reflect on for no reason, or we barely ever reflect on?
Hello?
Yeah.
Yo, my phone's at
Alright.
1%. Fuck.
Do you guys still hear feedback on my end?
No, you're good.
No.
I might have to rejoin this call in just like a couple minutes because my phone's at 1% and I'm still out in my car. So give me a couple minutes.
Okay.
That's tough, bro. That's why you gotta charge him, my dude.
Man, it's been a long day. I'm trying.
Um,
All right, so y'all go on. Fuck. You're a mirror, Orlando. I'll leave you with. Fuck. All right. Okay. I'll be
can't
back.
really hear you guys. Like I hear you guys really low. Is it
Really?
just me? I'm trying to turn it up a little.
My fingers over my mic. That might have been it.
Is your thing on speaker or device?
Speaker. Oh, it was
What were you guys talking about?
on your sound.
Who's that? Is that me?
I think that's Yusha. I don't know. Anyway, I think it's
The
gone.
wind chime that I'm sitting outside.
Oh, that's what it is.
Yeah.
All right. Fuck, give me one
Yeah,
more minute. Run inside. All right, just like
I was gonna say, what are you guys like talking about? It seems like you guys already died down. I feel like I missed it all already.
you missed a lot.
Dang, that's tough.
We've been talking for like
we
an
were
hour.
basically, yeah.
7 minutes short, but yeah, about.
See, what we basically started off with was reflecting, either us being a reflection of someone or something, for example, our parents, society, things that surround us. And then we moved towards reflecting on our life and that kind of stuff. And then we basically just kind of drifted off into talking about what was the last thing we were talking about? I forgot.
Um. Oh. Weapons of mass destruction. Really, just like
Yes.
why men feel the need to seek out a way of destroying the world instead of like living in it.
You guys ever think about like the construction of society and like civilization as a whole? And what I mean by that is like when you're in a group or like when you're working alongside other people, you feel like you have to build this certain relationship or this bond with people to effectively, contribute. And I feel like in some way it feels sort of complex or complicated, right? Um, and so when you really think back on it, you think, wow, literally primitive beings at one point, not only did they do this, but they decided to build an entire society. And like this happened over centuries and millennia, and to the point that where we are now. So like it makes me wonder, like, what is it exactly that caused us to lead to the point where, hey, I have a nuclear bomb, I'm a better country than you? Like, what led us to that point? Like, what exactly
We used to
caused
be.
it to happen?
We used to be, kids, and then here we are, suddenly big men throwing bombs at each other. But we forget that we were once children and afraid of the dark. It's men hating the world. They don't know how to love it, so they hate it instead. Because that's the easier thing to do.
Well, I think you one time, Marcus, you kind of said that love kind of drives everything, right? And so you said that perhaps for all these people who like are kind of despicable It's like their love for power or their love for certain things that leads them a certain way. Like how you guys were talking about reflections of parents. Maybe these people looked at their parents and like saw the bad things that they loved and were into. And from an early age they were like, well, I just want to rule the world, or I just want to have power, or I just want to be great. You know what I mean? It's sort of this perverted way of attaining greatness, you could say.
Exactly what it is. A better way of obtaining greatness. When a child does not receive the proper ingredients, for it to grow, it can, instead of turning to its neighbor and loving it and trying to help him grow, he turns to him and hates him instead. And then he grows up into a big man with big money and big plays in the world. And then they start, dipping their hands into this and that, playing here and playing there. And suddenly they consider themselves God in a sort. So then, because they're so exposed to everything, they participate in the worst because they consider it none the doesn't matter, because nothing matters, because they don't love life, they hate it. So that's the danger, that's the maximum danger of man. That's what it is. And to accept it's to acknowledge that it exists. Because man has freedom, so there's gonna be that exists now. So like it really makes me wonder, like, why are like the smartest minds on earth not focused on trying to, like, the answer on how to be a human rather than how to, like, perpetuate humanity? Do you see the difference? Like,
I think it's because the smartest minds, live in our society. And our society basically says, like, hey, if you don't have X amount of money, if you don't have X amount of this, then you're not really living. And so that's why people are shifting focus from the things that we ought to do versus things that I need to do for myself.
yeah,
And
I think
so, yeah. Go ahead. What were you going to say? Marcus?
I think his line dropped.
Oh, that's funny. No, but what I was thinking with that too, though, is like, because he was saying there's a missing ingredient. It's making me think, like, what's the missing ingredient? Like, are certain people not challenged enough, or do they not go through adversity? Like, there's nothing to humble a person, and that can lead to someone having like an ego in the excess. Is that always a bad thing, having like a big ego? I don't know. I don't know, man.
But we're taught that it's a bad thing because how it makes the other person, like the recipient of that attitude, feel. But if you look at the person who has a big ego, um, they might think that, in the past I've been treated a certain way, or in the present that I'm being treated a certain way. That is why I have this attitude.
That makes sense. Yeah, of course. And also, I think we're also very quick to blame people for certain things they do, but like we don't always take into consideration the environment that people are bred into. Like, like I'd say maybe billionaires and millionaires, like we say, hey, like, why is it that this person has so much money and like they're so selfish? And it's like, to some extent, to exist in that environment, you have to kind of be of a certain nature. It's like to even have attained what they attained, it's like it kind of molds you in a certain way. The place that you're going into molds you in a way. So, I don't know. So it makes me think, like, how is it that one can change the world when the power needed to change the world kind of shifts you away from changing it, if that makes any sense.
I guess it does in a very weird way, because growing up, um, it's almost like it's almost like we're told to always fit into a certain mold, right? to do this, not to do this, and blah blah blah. But when we grow up, we're expected to be these completely autonomous, separate, free thinking individuals, which we are never either trained for, nor are we, looked at in a very accepting kind of way that, okay, so what if he or she is different from me, right? Why do we let our differences define us and not bring us closer?
Yeah, that's true. It's like I feel like perception is such an and it's kind of, it doesn't really make sense, or it's kind of silly to say this, but I think perception is such an underrated thing that people don't really consider. Because if you really think about it, like the very nature that you live in is like your eyes only see others. Like you never really see yourself. Like that's something you're not looking at yourself in third person when you wake up. You look at other people. And like it makes me think, wow, what was the world like when like literally there was no mirrors, you know? So from the very like when we're brought into this world, we're literally brought in like through like an eyeglass. And so it's kind of funny to think that, but yet people can't see beyond their perception and think, oh, maybe this person thinks like this, or maybe this person feels like this. And to some extent, I feel like we're sort of incapable because it's like it's a guessing game. It's like, oh, maybe this person feels like this, maybe they don't, maybe they do, and it's like it can lead people to overthink or feel certain things that don't really exist, and that's all due to our perception, you know. And we're constantly trying to widen that perception, sort of like through the eyeglass, sort of trying to widen it and lengthen it so that we can see past it and see clearer. And I feel like that's kind of the goal with doing different things in life, you know.
Yeah, that's another thing Marcus and I briefly touched bases on, that our entire lives we are told that, you know, uh, treat others how you want to be treated, right?
Mm.
But now that we talk about it, I'm beginning to see that that is another problem that lies within our teachings towards our children. Instead of saying that, why don't we say that, hey, it's better to set off limits earlier as opposed to, coming to the situation and then defining limits. For example, in a relationship, right? It's always
Mm.
better to have predefined limits and openness and that kind of stuff. So why do we not implement the same aspect to other things in our life? And we kind of referred to how Buddhist monks are the ones that completely isolate themselves and focus on bettering themselves, so that if anyone does go up to them and they're shouting bad words and cursing them out and all that stuff, they don't have a reaction. Why? Because they don't follow the rule that treat others how you want to be treated, right? They treat they are like, okay, his words are not doing me any physical harm. I can just ignore them. I don't need to give him a reaction.
Yeah, and in that
So
way, oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead, go ahead. I was just that's it.
Yeah, like you're right. And then I think in a way it's sort of like for some people it's sort of a misguided sort of like defense mechanism, you know. It's like, "Oh, I don't care what this person thinks," or I don't, you know, it doesn't really affect me in the long run, so I'm not going to try to fix it, or I'm not going to try to address it. And in some ways that can be good for people because obviously you're not always going to have people who are willing to give you good criticism, but then for some people it's like they just don't want to take criticism at all, and so it kind of creates this person who is kind of closed-minded in that way, and like they don't see past the error of their ways. And it's kind of troublesome for some people because you kind of see that a lot in people. um Also, I kind of like what you're saying about like the monk. Like I have always like the Buddhist monks, like I've always kind of appreciated that because I don't know if you've ever tried it, but like it's like this idea of just not thinking, of like, oh, I'm just gonna sit here for who knows how long and I'm not gonna think. Like that to me isn't it's like it's pretty insane. Like I've tried to do that for like just 10 minutes and it's the hardest thing in the world. And it's like, man, like I think so much. I'm so used to thinking like how can I rest my mind? You know, how can I stop it and reset? And what's really cool too is like I've heard about how monks like not only are they able to stop thinking, but like going back to perception, like one can imagine what it's like to not even be human, to like to maybe to be a butterfly or to be like a caterpillar, or have the perception of, you know, a bird flying in the sky, or so on and so forth. And I think that's something like, I don't know, I think that in and of itself is like incredible and it's kind of peaceful in a way, but that'd be awesome to do, dude, to be honest. I don't think I can do it though, to be honest.
I think that relates back to the discussion we were having earlier when the three of us met in person, that about meditation and what it's actually like to be in a mental state that you truly feel nothing. Like it's not a bad nothing, but you don't feel anything. Like you're just completely blank. Just you feel like you're floating in a tub of water or something. You know, you don't feel anything worrying you. You don't feel any grief. You don't feel happy. You just exist.
Hmm. Yeah, and like that makes you think like, is that what is that necessarily? Because I think we talk about animals a lot, and like we're saying, oh, well, animals, they don't think, they don't feel, they don't, so on and so forth. Um, so it makes me think like, okay, well, what if we were to act like that? Like, what if we just didn't think? Like, is that, would we feel sort of this agony, or would we feel pain, or would we be more at peace? Like, what would we be closer to? Would it be a good or a bad thing? You know, like, what do you think about that?
See, the only reason why I believe that we can never truly be in that state of being in which we notice animals is because there's no way for us to, kind of go into their minds and see and experience everything that an animal does. Like even for you and I to compare how we think and do things, that's not very possible because I'm not you, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
Like
exactly.
we share similar experiences, but they're never 100% the same.
Mm, good point.
So like we can attend the same class, but it's not necessary that we're gonna get every single answer on every single test, quiz, and exam exactly the same.
That's true. Exactly. Like even you have people who are literally genetically identical twins who still grow up to have like completely different personalities.
True.
Yeah, and it's like that to me is incredible because it shows you how influential like small macro micro level moments really are to a person. Like literally if I am in one room and my identical brother is in another room and we both experience different things at the same moment, like that event in and of itself can have shifted our mindset completely. And that to me kind of gives you like the complexity of humans, like how every small little thing adds up to be a person, to be a person's mind, you know. So
And I
That's
think
exactly it.
it goes back to you and Marcus's point of that aspect of reflecting, either through a mirror or just through our own experiences, that I experience something a certain way. I wonder, and then I reflect upon if someone else experienced the same thing exactly the same way, or how differently did they experience it.
hmm, exactly, yeah. You want to jump in, Marcus? I've heard you were going to say something real quick.
No, I was trying to think on that. Um,
Damn, that's weird.
and it really it really makes you appreciate timing, the timing of things. Because if you didn't decide to leave the house at that time and make that turn and speed up at that time and change lanes, then maybe you would have been in that accident. You know, maybe you wouldn't have seen that friend that you haven't seen in 5 years. Because you're both in crossing the same walk at the same time. It makes you appreciate those because of exactly that, because all the little moments add up. So when you add them all up and you look at it and you appreciate the timing of things, you add a layer to yourself, and it kind of makes you appreciate what is. I don't know. It's and that I don't know how to describe. Hard to describe.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because like I've always like felt like life is sort of like this giant, like this vast mechanism. You know, when you think about like literally the planets and the stars or whatever large body of mass in the universe that's floating around, like we think of it as such like a some emptiness in the universe, right? But it's like, okay, the moon can pull a certain amount of water and cause waves. A certain amount of air can shift on the earth, so on and so forth. Certain things can happen in everyday life that cause like vast differences and changes. So it's like I feel like me maybe reading a book one night or me maybe walking outside can all be leading up to a significant event in my life that could have been influenced by that. And it's sort of like clockwork. It's sort of like this grand mechanism where it's like one thing is causing another thing to shift, and it's constantly happening, and it's happening like as we speak right now. It's happening.
Yeah, it's
And
like this
yeah.
beautiful grinding of gears that we can't see. Like invisible gears. As everyone walks, gears are ground, and as you make a decision, you grind a gear upon another gear, which causes another gear to spin, etc., etc. That's what it seems like. It's almost as if just a gear moving within gears.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it would also fall under the bigger umbrella of how certain things are just predetermined for us. That, I didn't decide that, for example, I wanted to go for a walk today, but it was in that moment that I felt like going for a walk outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it goes back to like just the random shifts of the earth. Like literally, maybe it was just a really sunny day, or it was just a really nice day outside that you were thinking to yourself, oh, maybe I should go walk outside. Or, vice versa. Oh, I wanted to go out for a walk outside, but it started to rain. So instead, I decided to go to this cafe. And then you meet someone, So it's like those really random things. Like I've always thought that, like when I'm driving to work and it's raining or if it's really nice, I'm like, something's getting cooked up here. Like something's cooking up. That's gonna happen, I think that to myself sometimes.
Yeah.
What do you
Good way to
guys
put
think
it.
about regret? Like, ever since I started to drive when I was 14, I've been involved in only 3 accidents, right? And after every accident, it's the same feeling that, maybe I shouldn't have gone out for a drive today. What if I just stayed home?
Or took a different turn, went
Yeah,
home a different way. Yeah, that's exactly it.
because in the beginning, like right off the bat, Marcus and I were talking about how growing old physically, you tend to become less of a rational adult and more of an irrational child.
It's we always question things, and I think that's like we're the biggest question mark on Earth, and I think that's we either fade away into It's just that we get cooked, into the stone. But
You said we get cooked into what?
into stone, our hearts, they harden sometimes, and people have a hard time of remembering what they once, thought of as children. So it's like an impossible connection, because their heart needs melting. That
I think that's
takes.
like, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think it's kind of related to something you'd said previously, or like a metaphor that you used previously about humans being like clay. I mean, when you think about
Yeah,
clay, it's very moldable when it's first fresh, and you can move around, mess around with it, but it hardens. And so in that hardening, in and of itself, it's like difficult to even mold or to change afterwards. And I
it's
think that's a perfect
yeah.
example.
Uh, I started using another one, like where, you know, a blacksmith working on a sword has to strike it while it's hot, or it's gonna harden, and he's gonna have to pick up the hammer again. But the hammer's always there. But sometimes I feel like we forget that the hammer's there and that we can stoke ourselves into the fire, or we
Mhm.
forget where we can find the fire. Rather, we're not gonna find the truth if we don't know where it lies. Oh, just quoted one of my favorite bands, I believe. I believe that was one of the lyrics of the song.
I like that one, dude. That's a good one.
The Vaccines, I've told you about them before, I believe.
Oh, vaccines. I heard a couple. I think I heard like two of their songs.
Yeah. Uh, but that's exactly it. We've forgotten, you know, we're this metaphysical clay, just like you said, we're this where we have this ability to reflect and remember or be hardened and forget. And the world tries its best to make you forget. It's like this forgetting chamber, and it hates you for remembering, you know?
And I mean, I think what you were saying there about too about the blacksmith, I think that's like super valid because when you do try to recreate yourself and become, I guess, moldable again, it's like you have to kind of destroy yourself. Like
Hmm.
certain
Exactly.
habits and certain natures that you've adopted, you have to like either completely let them go or you have to shift them. And so it's like that is so hard to do for people because it's literally a habit. It's literally a habitual thing that becomes you that you have to like stop.
Yeah. It's this, yeah, you've become, yeah, shit, I'm guilty of it myself. And
The way I see it is like you're trying to go to a restaurant or you're trying to go somewhere and like you're like, oh, should I look on? I mean, I've done this like a long time ago. I don't do this anymore. But I'm like, oh, should I look on Google Maps or should I just use my mind? Oh, I remember how to get there. And you go the wrong way, and you're just telling yourself, no, I'm not wrong. No, I'm not wrong. And then when you finally check Google Maps, you realize you've gone like the completely opposite direction. And so just like how when you're having to destroy your habits, you're having to decide to say, hey, let me turn around completely and drive
yeah,
all the way back. Like that's literally what you're having to do.
yeah, that's exactly it. And it's hard to turn into yourself like that. It's really like, that's what it takes, though, is to turn into yourself and recognize.
Bro, my dude, you
Right.
sound stoned. Are you smoking a bong right now?
I'm also very tired. I'm tired. I'm laying
We're
in bed,
recording
so I'm actually tired.
that. We're recording.
Oh, oh, oh. Sorry. I mean, this is the philosophers anyway, so philosophers.
Yeah, in case they want to use it, they're just gonna have to cut it out.
Uh, Hopefully they don't.
I don't know
Damn it.
what you're talking about. Um,
I was saying, like, are you like, are you in a bond? Like, do you have a strong bond with
yeah,
with yourself?
yeah, I am. My body's stoned. It's some parts of me are turned to clay, stone. But I
Yeah,
like to think
exactly.
I stoke the fire. I try to get my heart melting. Uh,
There you
I
go,
try to make
bro.
sure it stays warm. Um,
Nice, nice. Burn that kindle inside your heart. Yeah, exactly. Oh man.
But
See,
yeah, like,
we often say that, oh, my heart has turned to stone, quote unquote, right?
mm,
But we we fail to make the proper connection that a stone cannot be turned back into its original form of like sand or clay, right?
Mm.
But when we say that, oh, my heart is beginning to soften up, like I'm becoming human again, we make completely the wrong analogy from that. Like you cannot take a clay pot and just, put it in fire or some sort of change and have it turned back into the same clay that it was at the time of its creation.
yeah, you can add to it. It's this, yeah, it's just we're more complex than that, exactly. Um, and it's just getting to understand that every moment of our life is important and it molds us in a way. And so you were grow in a way that causes your soul to, be molded a certain way. And I think that's what everyone's trying to do or something.
My dude, you sound like you're nodding off, bro.
I am, man. It's so late, man. And I've been,
Right, so only 12.
Yeah, I was
it's
gonna
only
say my
12.
my sleep schedule must be messed up because I'm like, this is early for me.
Like, it's sometimes early. No, I'm really tired right now. It's been late.
You had a long day at work or what?
No, it's a long day. And normally, I really rely on my sleep, to be honest.
That's fair.
And get like and dude, there were some kids outside my girlfriend's new apartment, man, at 4 a.m., like some teenagers in the pool making a ruckus, man. The first scream I heard, it felt like I sounded like bloody murder, and I was genuinely scared. I was like, someone getting murdered outside the window, man. And so then I'm like, if I hear another thing, I'm gonna like look outside, and then I heard something else, another scream, and I look outside. I'm like, dang, there are some people up there. What? And so then I look at the time, and it's 4 a.m. And I was like, man, bruh.
That's
And then
tough.
I was like, all right, I'm gonna just try to go back to bed. And if I keep hearing them though, then I'm gonna start saying something. And then I kept hearing them. So then I had to like I put on some pants and then I went out to the balcony area and I put to the side the blinds and I turned the light and one was walking, outside the pool right there. And I stepped aside and I was like, hey, yeah, I can hear all that. So like if you could keep it down, thanks. And they're like, yeah, all right. And they were quiet after that because I think they were just some team. I don't even know if they lived there, man. I hope they did. But I'm like, do their parents know they're sneaking out this late? Because like the pool has hours, bro. Like, and they were loud, bro. I was like, bro. But they were quiet afterwards, so I was like, bet. But
Yeah, I was
yeah,
gonna
dude,
say
I
like,
always seem
where's
to be like
security
getting
at?
woken up. Dude, this apartment is whack. It's like, but they fixed some things, but they're just like lacking. There's a lot of kids at this part, bro. I didn't realize how many schools. It's literally right next to a school, and then there's another school like down the road. So there's a lot of families at this apartment, and that's what we don't swim in the pool because I'm terrified. You know what I'm saying?
You're terrified of what?
Because of the amount of kids that swim in it. I know there's gonna be some urine in. Is what I'm trying to tell you, no matter how many times I see them clean it. We just sunbathe, you know what I'm saying?
That's cool, man.
But yeah, that's what I've been having, bro. But her apartment's been getting better by the second, man. They've been, because we sent them a written notice of all the shit that was wrong, so they had to take action, and they did. But Now we're just realizing there's a lot of kids, and it's nice looking at it because it reminds me of the reflection, trying to be a kid again, but then these kids at 4 a.m., bro. Okay, now I'm just keeping myself up. All right.
But does it ever make you feel like reflecting like when you were in that age group
Yeah,
and
exactly. Yeah, I think about like because they were like running after each other, like playing tag and random shit, like on the soccer field. And I'm like imagine you see an adult like running after each other. Like one time I was driving and I just saw like a bunch of kids like running after each other around an apartment complex, and I'm like, what if you just see some adults doing that? Like why don't we play tag? Like we're not like as excited about life, or everything's not as special anymore. We forget how special it is, to be, have the human experience. And we tell ourselves not to forget, and then we forget. And then we see kids do it and go, oh, and then we could do it, and then we just don't do it. Like but we,
Isn't that so weird though? Like that was such
but,
an entertaining thing because now that I
yeah,
think about it, when I was a kid, like literally it just took one of my cousins to say, "Oh, like get her, or get him, or tag or
yeah,
whatever."
exactly, exactly,
And it's
exactly.
so weird that like that was like no matter how grown you thought you were as a kid, no matter like how sophisticated you might have thought, like as soon as someone set it off, you were like, "Okay, I'm running."
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, what triggered that? Like that's now that I'm thinking about it, what exactly was it? Like now, what is the difference now that you can't really do that anymore? That's so weird.
It's this. We forget. I don't know, man.
I don't know, dude. I don't know. We're all fancy schmancy. We're like, oh, I got better things to do than play tag.
That's about it, honestly. I'd rather have a big house with fancy things and uncomfortable furniture.
Uncomfortable. As long as it looks nice, bro. Come on now.
That's what they think. It's that type of thing. Anyway. Oh, all right, I
Bro,
need a glass of water. I'm gonna leave y'all now. That was a good talk. You there, Yusha?
yeah, I'm here. I was just saying that. See, yeah, when we were kids, we used to engage in like tag and all that kind of stuff. Like, what was that frog game called? Where you jump over one another, leapfrog or something like that.
Frogger.
Leapfrog.
Yeah,
Leapfrog.
a hopscotch and all that stuff, right? But now, like, recently I went to pin stack with a couple of friends and we played laser tag, right? And you should have heard us, like, that nervous laugh that just comes from your stomach. That
Yeah.
was echoing in the entire arena. Like, we're grown ass adults, right? 24, 25, 23 year olds just running around, just running around and just, hitting one another with the laser tag gun or whatever. But I think it's that aspect that we often forget when we
Mhm.
say that, oh, I'm an adult, right? I'm much better than I'm better than this.
Mm.
We forget to have fun. But then
That's
there's just like with the innocent fun, like where you just appreciate just the
yeah.
small things, like the simple, like how a dog appreciates a stick, they just chew the shit out of it. You know what I'm saying? So you just appreciate the butterfly that's flying, or the flower that's blooming, or the tree that's swaying, the wind that's blowing, or the sun that's warming, that type of stuff, you know, and you appreciate the timing of it. 'Cause then you see, it really there's a connection there, and again, that elevates us beyond. That's what makes us human, is our ability to feel that and connect with that, and
Yeah, that's true.
like it molds us in a very definite, like it's oof. You can't deny it anymore. It's like so obvious. Like we talk about how we're so sophisticated and like advanced, but then we don't like acknowledge just how like crazy humans ourselves are. And like,
That's true though. Like everybody can claim to be this or be that, but at the end of the day, if someone tells like some kind of immature joke, like someone's gonna laugh. People are gonna laugh. no matter how minded you think you are, you're always gonna giggle at like the small random things. Like it's sort of like the childish like
Mm.
nature that's still in you. You know what I'm saying? And I also like that like you guys are kind of getting at it is like just making like this time for yourself, like to play laser tag or to go outside and enjoy nature. It's like just literally just have time to enjoy things. You know, it doesn't
Yeah,
have to be
watch a tree grow. You
yeah.
know, watch the bee. Yeah, it's because then you find yourself not making weapons of mass destruction that could destroy those things, and you just sit there and appreciate it instead of making big hullabaloo and worrying about money. Instead of just staying on your land and appreciating your things and having your family. And but men get greedy and move the borderline, and they say, I want what's yours, and they're envious, and then they do acts that they normally wouldn't in search of such things. And it's messy, and it's part of the battle of being human. But
I think that like Yusha was talking about it too, though, like the idea of like we can never really understand someone else's perception, and like right now I'm just asking myself like, dang, like what causes a person that has like who's in power of a country to say, oh, this is not enough, I want to take their country, you know? And it's like I try to understand their
really
mindset,
weird.
you know?
Yeah.
And it's like it's so hard to, but like the idea is like, okay, well maybe they were born to power or maybe they were born to nothing, and they're like, well, I love my country, and meaning and loving my country, that means that I have to expand on it, I have to conquer, or I have to destroy in the name of it. And it's like, why is it that like that's the first thing that people go to is like destruction or conquering?
Because it's the easy action to grab. It's the evil can be
Mm.
said that it's an opportunity that's grasped because it was before you, so you believe it's yours. So it's that this is mine. So it's like, so then you're conquering, and then you're taking, and then it's yours, and then nothing's like everything falls apart. But then that's how it can be. That's exactly. I mean, it's
You know what's funny is like, what if it's all just like a sophisticated game of tag for them? You know, what if it's like, because if you think about it with tag, like I'm trying to run faster than everybody. I'm trying to be like the better person in that
mm,
sense. Like, oh, I run faster, I can
yeah.
catch you easy. So like,
First
what
of the
if
moon.
it's yeah, like what if it's all a sophisticated game of tag where they're like, oh,
That's
I'm
exactly.
better, I have a bigger country, I could take yours. Like, you know.
That's exactly what it is. It's everyone, instead of just being content, they're constantly trying to you know, be bigger. Like we spend so much money on like, military, and it's kind of ridiculous. Like, and we claim to be like it's a little like ironic. Like, well, I get it, like, but it's like where the priorities of the world, and you notice where the priorities of the world are. They're focused on destroying and leaving. Literally, like you see like the efforts of man, and it's like I don't know, when they were consolidated in war, like what do you think would happen if mass world war happened again? Like, do you understand the consequence of like what happened earlier? But now, because of the weight of things that we have, the of what we can do now, the responsibility that we're burdened with being this modern world,
Mhm.
what that would mean in a world war, like what that's why it's so scary, and that's why it's so weird to think.
Well, like that's the terrible thing about war, dude, because like I feel like with history, we're often told, oh, war is fought because there's a good side and there's a bad side. But
Mm,
like the more we know history, the more we realize that in reality, it's not even that. It's like a giant gamble. It's like, oh, I'm at the casino and I'm literally going to take a gamble and throw in my
yes.
chips and see what I can get out of this. Let me throw in my troops, and if I win, I'm going to own all this different property or all this different resources, and I'm going to
To
I'm going to
prevent
win.
communism from spreading.
You know what I'm saying? So like
Yeah.
that's kind of terrible. It's like in reality nothing really good comes of it. I mean, in some sense you could say that well, we stopped the Nazis from killing Jewish people, that I would say it's obviously that's a good thing. But what I'm saying is, like, ultimately it seems like what drives countries to actually go to war is not the pursuit of some kind of higher, not good goal, but instead it's to gain, to just have more. And
The
it's never
reputation
like
that they
about
could
good
receive.
versus bad, you know?
Yeah, they're not acting on, because otherwise they would go in there and preach peace and love. I mean, but then again, it's dangerous to do. I'm scared to say that because it has to go about right, but it's a dangerous game. You have to. It has to be said and done like,
The right way.
yeah.
But see, just to play the devil's advocate, we have wars not always because one party is trying to conquer the other. More oftentimes than not, it's the second party defending itself.
Mm,
You know, like in Afghanistan, we can say whatever we want, and sure, they might be extremists from our point of view and whatnot. What they do inside of Afghanistan, that's that's them protecting their territory, right? But anything they do outside towards another country, that's an act of terrorism.
Mm.
So just to kind of look at the entire bigger picture of things, it's not always oppressor versus oppressed. It could be just, attacker defender kind of situation. It's not
mm,
always about trying to conquer.
yeah.
Well, like that's what I was kind of saying though, is like it's sort of a winner takes all kind of deal. It's I'm kind of glad you brought that up because like I've been thinking a lot about the situation too, and like the idea here is like, okay, in the U.S. I'm gonna go to war over there, and they were BSing, to be honest, saying, oh, it was because of Bin Laden or whatever. It was not true. In reality, they just wanted the resources. It was like a winner take all game. How much money am I gonna spend to take all whatever resource I need to from this country? And for the Taliban, it's in a sense it's the same thing. It's like, okay, right now the country is destabilized, so now is the perfect opportunity to throw in all my chips and take control. You know,
Mm.
Yeah.
and
Well,
I
we
don't
have the
know.
British Empire as an example. It used to be called an empire where the sun never sets because they had control over the entire east and the west, you know.
Yeah.
But lo and behold, as countries fought back for their freedom, they just about had enough of the English ruling them a certain way, whether it was culture, religion, practices, ethics, so many other things that account towards it, in fact, that a person would just end up in that state of a fight back response.
Hmm. Exactly. That's true. And I don't know. Like, I think when it comes to these countries and like us intervening or anybody intervening, I think it's kind of a bad thing for anyone to intervene. I mean, it's such a slippery slope because when you think about it, certain countries have to go through like their own inter adversity for them to become a better country, if that makes any sense. Like the US, for example, like at one point we were in a civil war. Like that civil war needed to happen for the country to stabilize. And so what if another country during the civil war decided to say, "Hey, America, you're fighting right now. I'm going to intervene and control you." That would have completely deterred our growth and our revolutions and our advancement. And so like when you think about it, that's what we do in a lot of other countries. Oh, hey guys, look, this person's killing this other person. We're gonna intervene and we're gonna say it's in the name of democracy. Like that to me is sort of distorted and like perverted. You know what I'm saying?
Mm. See that at that point, we're just looking at what happened during the world wars, right? It
Mm.
was basically one or two countries fighting either one another or internally, and then come along these third parties where they start taking sides that, oh, England picked this side, France picked that side, Germany picked that side, US picked this side, and so on and so forth. And then you have groups of countries fighting other groups of countries where they fail to realize that at the end of the day, the loss that is already taking place is far more great than all of the country's resources or whatever they were fighting for combined.
Mm.
Like even until today, you have so many accounts of people who lost their family members during the world wars, and for what reason we still don't know. Like, sure, historians try to make sense of it, that why did the World War One, why did World War Two happen, but we are forced to look at it through a very specific set of lenses, that, oh, this country was doing bad to this country, that's why country C intervened, and on the backing of that, so on and so forth, took place. But in reality, we may never know what initiated the first, I guess, snowball effect of the world wars. That goes back to, again, we never being able to see another person's true perspective.
Yeah, really good point there. Exactly. You're exactly right. And it's like it even goes back to something we were talking about earlier, like where, oh, because it doesn't affect me right now, I don't care and I'm not going to fix it. And it's like it's a lot of moments like that where like two countries can start to build up like these really bad relationships where it's like at first they come to a disagreement and then one country is like, oh, well, I don't care, I'm not going to fix that, and then so on and so forth, and it builds up and it builds up until finally they're at war and it becomes ugly, and then there's death, and then there's all these different kinds of things that happen. So it's kind of crazy how you see like these entire societies and like this entire conflict, like they're just reflections of like conflict of humans.
True.
I wonder if Marcus fall asleep yet.
I'm sorry.
Shit, I'm on mute. My bad.
No,
I thought I was saying I agree. Anyway, I am totally about to fall asleep. This has been a great conversation. Y'all continue on as far as you will, I guess. But until next time, boys. Appreciate you.
Yeah, I'll head out too because I'm trying to study and talk at the same time, but I get easily distracted. But yeah, we should do this more often, man. I enjoy these conversations for sure.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm glad we got together.
Yeah.
All right, till next time, gentlemen.
All right, guys. I'll see y'all. Have a good night, okay?
Y'all too. Peace. Take care.
All right, bye, guys.